share my screen. Yeah, can everybody see and hear me? And also my
Yes,
PowerPoint. Yeah,
loud and clear,
okay.
and visuals are clear.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for coming to my presentation. I am Jia from the University of New South Wales, and this is a paper co-author with Dr. Huabing Wang from Sun Yat-sen University in China. So the topic we are looking into is tackling end users' perception of song lyric translation, an attitude analysis approach to subtitling comments about "See You Again" in Chinese music app, NetEase Cloud. So this is the agenda of my presentation. I will talk about translation of song lyrics, translating and subtitling song lyrics as digital commercial products, reception as a substandard. And then I will continue to introduce this research significance and data collection and data analysis in our project. And then I will talk about the findings and also the conclusion of our research. So first of all, a little bit of research background. Song translation has always been intermingled with research on literary poetry and stage translation, whose history dates back to the 1990s when music translation such as opera flourished as an interdisciplinary field. Other genres of musicals and popular songs also became the central focus of investigation later on. But in all those genres of song translation, for example, like the songs in opera, translators usually pay equal attention to the observable performances of music and the lyrics in the source and target text, which means music and lyrics are of equal importance and have to be treated equally when we are rendering the source text into the target text. And according to previous studies, one proposed by Frenzen, there are actually 5 choices in song translation. Leaving the song untranslated, translating the lyric but not taking the music into account, writing new lyric with no overt relation to the original lyrics, adapting, translating, and then adapt the music, translate the lyrics, and then adapt the lyrics. So when we are doing opera translation or stage translation, more often we actually have to, as I mentioned, we have to consider the lyric and the music. But there is, in this digital world, there is one particular genre that has been largely ignored. That's lyric translation for music app or for online music videos, and also lyric translation sometimes in films. That's the situation when we are translating lyrics most often as subtitles. In this case, we don't actually take the music into account. So I'm actually talking about the second type of song translation here. So song lyric translation, both in the form of original subtitles and of translation, constitute part of the commercial product in the digital media platform. And this has not been researched much in previous study. Most often, song lyric translation is the communicative goals of song lyric translation is not taken into account. In our opinion, there are actually 2 major communicative goals of song lyric translation. The first one is information dissemination. So it's to disseminate information, that is to narrate the content of the song. And the second one is for business promotion, which is to publicize the song and also some commercial products that's related to the song, for example, movies or TV shows. So lyric translation can be seen as a supplement to the original lyrics instead of a new version, which is produced only for the target audience to recognize the existence of the original song, so that they will be able to better enjoy the song and the product itself. And this particular case we are trying to look into, music app in China, is simply because audience have this particular platform or section or place for them to voice their opinion on the translation, and we are interested in to finding out what they think of lyric translation and what they actually expect from lyric translators. Because in this digital world, when people appreciate movies, music videos, or even music online, they will actually be able to appreciate the music and also the lyrics together with the translation in the meantime. So as I cite here, while genuine users of interlingually subtitle text rely fully on the subtitle for comprehension, in this music app, we are looking into the co-presence of subtitle and soundtrack and also the translation, allow viewers to compare and judge their quality. So, and since translating and subtitling song lyric give priority to content over form, the audiovisual translator and editors have to leave their idea goals fulfilled by other researchers, saying catering the music and the lyric behind, and then they will place the content of the lyric in the first place. That's how we do song lyrics as subtitles. And where is our research situated? So according to Chen, there are four main schools of theory concerning subtitle translation. The first one is lexic-centered study. SFL is also applied in this field to study how we can render the source text of lyrics or subtitles into the target text in the target language. The second one is audience-focused study. That's exactly where our study is situated. We would like to actually look at the comments from audience to identify how they receive and perceive the translated subtitles, lyric subtitles. The third one is non-specified study, in which researchers will look at how translators actually do this translation, what are the norms of doing translation in a certain field. And the last one is semiotic-oriented study, in which multimodal resources are involved in the analysis. So audience-focused study has been gaining momentum in recent years because gradually researchers are interested in how the audience receive and perceive translation. Before reception studies have been conducted in recent years, translators always have these imaginary readers in their minds, thinking like, if I translate in a certain way, the audience will be able to understand it without actually inviting the opinions of an actual audience. So that's why we would like to know, instead of having this imaginary reader in our mind, we would like to know what the actual audience think of translation. And this is called reception study in translation study. So reception has gradually become a substandard of evaluating translation. In terms of song lyric translation, there's not much done in this area. One research in particular, I would like to mention, conducted a survey among 209 participants on 9 subtitle musical of the classic Hollywood era with 88 songs. The results showed that the target audience did not identify prosodic match effectively, and 40% of them pay little attention to the rhyme, which even had no direct effect on their satisfaction. So that means translators have tried very hard to convey the musical elements of the source lyrics, source of the song. But then not many of the audience members have actually paid attention to that. Okay, so our study is actually different in three aspects from this previous study. So the first one is that in musical performance or in opera performance, the audience only have chance to appreciate the lyric translation once. It's here and then it's gone. So in the case we are trying to look into, audience actually can listen to the song again and again through the digital media platform, because they are actually watching the show online, and they have the option to play back and forth to replay the show. Second, when previous studies are trying to solicit opinions from the audience, most of the time they use survey. They have prepared some close-ended questions, so that audience will only be able to respond within the scale of the survey, and they cannot voice their actual opinions using like words or their comments. And the third gap we are trying to fill is that the development of online media and online communication has brought more and more chance for the online audience to post their opinions anytime, any place, and any way they want. So after listening some popular songs, they actually have a chance to tell what they need about the lyric translation. They will be able to make comments on the subtitle, and they can even propose suggestions for the improvement of the translation. So we actually have this kind of data readily available online. We would like to see what people are thinking of the translation. So that's the gap we are trying to fill. The present research probing to the end user's perspective on their perception and expectation of lyric translation, with an aim to explore the standards of lyric translation in the eye of the target text receiver. So specifically, the paper qualitatively analyzed users' comments on the lyric translation of the song "See You Again" by Charlie Puth, and Wiz Khalifa for the seventh movie Fast and Furious 7. So what we do is that we collect NetEase, this music app users' comments related to translation. So why do we choose this particular app? According to the 2020 report of China's online music industry, NetEase music app is the third largest music app in China, with 89 million users or so. And why do we choose this particular case? Because this song has become one of the most commented English songs in NetEase Cloud Music since its release in March 2015, and then subtitled in April 2015. You can see from the screenshot here, there are over 332,000 comments. Although not all of the comments are related to translation, but there are quite a few numbers directly addressing the issues of translation. So by collecting the comments relating to the translation amongst before and after the translation was publicized, this paper tried to explore how music lovers receive the lyric translation and what is expected. So the time period we collect data are two. So we have the period 150 comments, that's before the lyric was publicized, and then there's period 2 after the comments, after the lyric translation is released. So the tool we use is the attitude, the audience emotion. We try the attitude analysis under appraisal theory. We try to explore audiences' emotion, judgment, and evaluation about the translation and also the translator. So this is a qualitative analysis with analytic tools from appraisal theory. We basically use only the concept of attitude. Our focus is on audience emotion. So this is the framework we use to analyze the data. We focus on audience emotion, judgment, and evaluation about the translation and the translator. So in terms of affect, By affect, we analyze the audience emotion about the translation. And in terms of judgment, we analyze the competence of the translator. And as for appreciation, we discuss the quality about translation. So here's our finding. So after our analysis, we notice a major trend in major trend in terms of audience reception, underscoring three issues. The first one is consumer desire for lyric translation. Second is stylistic use of classical Chinese in translation. And then the third one is delivery of lyric emotion across language. So the first one is that according to the audience reception, it is confirmed that the target audience are in urgent need of lyrics translation, which can be witnessed in the large percentage of affective expression about in want of a translation in period 1. Consumers' passionate emotion about the appearance of the subtitled lyrics and their supportive attitude towards the official translation in period 2 also reveal the same, that audience actually want lyric translation. And this is actually against what we commonly believe in our life. If we look around, some other apps, maybe not in the Chinese culture, but in the English culture, normally, if you listen to a song, for example, in Japanese or in Korean, song lyric translation is not provided. And then most often you will hear people or researchers say that audience actually don't need such kind of translation. If they are trying to listen to a song not in their mother tongue, they should have some knowledge of that particular culture and also language. But the truth is that at least in the Chinese context, the audience, although most of them reveal that they know a certain degree of English, still prefer to have the subtitle translated, and they prefer to appreciate the translated subtitle. So that's the third thing we have identified. And then the second thing we like to talk about is the target audience actually attribute the use of classical Chinese translation to the translator's professional skills and competence, which is reflected in the way they make judgment on the translators into period. So there's a little bit of background here, is that when translating English songs into Chinese, some translators will actually use classical Chinese to translate. Classical Chinese is used hundreds of years ago, and these days it no longer plays a community function in society. Most of the time, people only learn it to be able to appreciate some work written by writers hundreds of years ago. Yeah. So it's no longer used to communicate. But then when we use this kind of classical Chinese to translate song lyrics, on the one hand, audience give full credit to the role of the translator. So they provide this kind of translation to enable them to understand the translation. On the other hand, they show a recognizable respect for the translator use of classical Chinese, even though a small percentage of the commentators disagree on showcasing behavior, like they are trying to show off using this particular language, with conflicting opinions on the stylistic choice. It is difficult, however, to determine if the target audience are satisfied with the quality of the translation or not, which depends chiefly on the calculation of appreciation expressions in positive and negative polarization. In fact, they differ a lot in terms of the level of appropriateness in applying classical Chinese into the official translation of the song lyrics, which has been negotiated from the perspective of release efficiency, cultural balance, and artistic effectiveness. So analyzing the data in the comment section of NetEase clause imply actually no issue in acknowledging the efficiency of releasing the official translation, almost all as satisfied in period 2. Regardless of their linguistic inputs, the target audience demonstrate no interest at all in the academic value of a cultural balance required in the traditional translation theory, with only a few cases narrating that it is vital for a good translation. So that means translators have been trying very hard to try to convey the source language and culture into the target text and the target language, but audience are not paying much attention to these kind of equivalents. The central debate actually lies in the third perspective, which is the effectiveness of generating artistic effects. For each, the original translation is considered by part of the target audience as a beautiful literary artwork instead of only a bilingual text. However, the opposing ideas are expressed mainly in the following aspects. Number one, with an interlingual comparison with vernacular Chinese, which the Chinese use in modern days, the use of classical Chinese in the official translation becomes an obstacle to understand the content of the song lyrics. The official translation with such acquisitive language does not match the song automatically, emotionally, and thematically. Melodically, emotionally, and thematically as required in accordance with the functional match between lyrics and music, especially the poetic and semantic reflexive match. So here is the summary of our finding. Overall reception analysis of consumer comments in this context indicate that priority has been given only to selected aspects of song lyric translation. Not all the aspects that translators have paid attention to when they are doing translation are paid equal attention to by the audience. First, in terms of sense, the target audience focus on the theme, the mood, and the main characters of the movie related to the lyrics, without paying sufficient attention to the original text, the content of the song lyrics. Second, as for naturalists, they give critical comments on the pros and cons of applying classical Chinese into the official translation, regarding it as a stylistic feature for easy or uneasy reception or consumption. But then one thing we can note from the comments is that they pay special attention to the emotion conveyed in the lyric translation, even though some are against the use of traditional of classical Chinese in lyric translation. One thing they have in common is that some think classical Chinese can be used to better convey the emotion of the song, which is actually played along with one of the deceased character in the movie. So using this kind of ancient language brings somehow the solemnness to the song. So it will, some of the audience believe that this reflects the theme and also the emotion of the song. And for those who are against the use of classical Chinese, they also pay equal attention to emotion, because they think Fast and Furious, if you have watched this movie, it's a very action, it's a movie with a lot of actions. So the use of this kind of ancient language does not fit the style of the movie. Okay, so that's the second one. The third, they touch upon the relation between the melody and the translated lyrics, but do not elaborate on the music properties such as rhythms, rhymes in both texts. The attitude analysis, however, only contributes by inviting the discussion about the mood of the song and emotion evoked via consuming the translation. So if further studies are conducted, they can focus more on their stances towards the translation of song lyrics, including detailed suggestion for improving the translation. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jia. So now we should have a couple of minutes for questions and thoughts and comments if you've got any. Okay, so if you wish, you can turn on your microphones, let us know who you are, or perhaps you can type your questions in the chat room. Maybe I forgot one very easy question for you, Jia. So perhaps could you also shed some lights on how you collected the data? So did you use any programs to collect the comments on the from the audience on the song lyrics translation quality?
Yeah, so those comments are actually publicly available on the music app I have chosen. I think it's something common in Chinese music app that they usually have a comment section. I have a little bit of help with Python, so we will be able to collect data ranging from a certain period, as I've mentioned a month before the translation, before the song was released and after the song was released. So we'll be able to see what people's expectation of the song lyric translation and also how they receive the translation. And then after that, we do a little bit of manually selection because not all the comments are related to translation. So we altogether collected over 10,000 comments. And then after manually selection, there's only 1,200 comments or so left in our database. And then we do a little bit of annotation under the appraisal theory, the framework I have presented just now, to identify the three aspects we are looking into. We also have some quantitative data, but as this is more qualitative sharing in the qualitative side, so I'm not presenting the quantitative data here.
That's all right. One more question for you. So what is the greatest challenge that you have met during the analysis and interpretation of the findings that you have?
The two of us actually annotate the data together. So when we compare the annotation results, sometimes we have different opinions towards which one represent effect and the other two aspects. So we have three different layers, and sometimes we actually have to have an in-depth discussion on which is better. So this actually takes a lot of time, like 1,200 comments, and a lot of discussion is going on after initial annotation. We have to cross-check and we have to sometimes negotiate a little bit on the annotation result so that we can be sure that the finding, the data analysis is reliable.
Right, that must be a lot of hard work. So, okay, once again, thank you so much, Jia, for your contribution and your sharing. Okay, so next coming up, again, the first speaker, Sergio Cayono, and the third speaker, according to the program, Baru Fan, are not with us today. So we'll pass over to Mana Almayouth, whose topic is exploring the dialogism of media newspaper articles, heteroglossic engagement in newspaper articles about Saudi women empowerment in a Arab news journal. So Mana actually did record her presentation and put online, but now she's present. But she would still like to present her video. But as she's present, she will also be happy to take your questions. So Alma, could you please share your screen and to see whether your video plays well?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'll share it now.
Okay.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, I do. Can we play the audio?
Hello, everyone. This is Manar Almayouth from Saudi Arabia.
Is that clear?
Yes, it's very clear. So let's move on.
Okay, let's take you through the video, and then I'll be happy to listen to your questions.
I am a lecturer at Al Juf University and a PhD. Hello, everyone. This is Manar Almayouth from Saudi Arabia. I am a lecturer at Al Juf University and a PhD student at King Saud University in Saudi Arabia. I am happy to present for you today a presentation about my study that I have conducted at the beginning of 2023. It is about exploring the dialogism of media, newspaper articles, heteroglossic engagement in newspaper articles about Saudi women empowerment in Arab News Journal. I'll take you through a quick introduction about the research topic, and then we will look at some studies related to engagement system, research gap, theoretical framework that we have used, methodology, specifically the context, data analysis and a procedure, results and discussion, and we will conclude this presentation. So at the beginning, we are talking about women, and women in Saudi Arabia have gained international attention in world news due to the successful development in the last 6 years in Saudi Arabia. However, being under the spotlight in the media does not always reflect positivity and acceptance of this change. The Saudi media is now under greater pressure to show the world objectively what has changed in the last 6 years. In Saudi Arabia, there are many newspapers that are for English speakers audience. How can these journals reflect their point of view about women's empowerment and a change in Saudi society? For this reason, I chose to explore 10 articles about Saudi women published in the Arab News Journal from 2020 to 2023. So at the beginning, let's look at a woman as a topic in Western society. And we all know that women have been studied widely in different fields. There are some studies that have applied the appraisal system or the appraisal framework on topics that are related, or in studies that are related to female studies or women studies. So, for example, there are studies about feminism issues in Western media, such as the studies by Abdul Muttalib 2017, Fathallah and Al-Khazraji 2022. There are some studies related to linguistic violence against women in the press, such as Mars Kawati 2016, Santimilia, and Miranda 2014. There is also a study that investigated the differences between female articles written by female authors from gender perspective, Fitriani 2020, and also a study by Aloy Mayo and Tiboda 2017 about political articles that are addressing women. Also, a study by Bonton 2010 was about political speech by a leader woman. Here we are talking about Margaret Thatcher. Also, there are studies that are focusing on comparison between men's and women's style and writing about women-themed articles such as Vakia et al. 2022 and Sutherland and Andrew 2014. There is also a study about the difference between men and women style and storytelling by Page 2003. So most common features in studies that use the engagement system, specifically on a newspaper, according to Hahn 2016, it was acknowledgement and endorsement features. Also, Fitriani 2022, she found that acknowledgement features were used more by women than men in their articles. Let's look at the research gap of this study. To the best of our knowledge, there are no studies on using the engagement framework to explore Saudi women-themed articles. So in this study, I am investigating Arab News journals specifically. It's an English language Arabic based journal addressing the world. where articles about Saudi women are introduced regularly. I'm looking at the dialogic linguistic features that are used to engage the putative readers of Arab News Journal about Saudi women-themed articles. My research questions are: how did engagement resources help to express and position authors' point of view to realistic interpersonal meaning in a heteroglossic discussion? What are features of heterogloss are disseminated in the newspaper articles written by male and female writers about Saudi women empowerment? The theoretical framework of this study, we are applying the appraisal framework since it has been applied to different types of discourse such as literary work, news, legal, scientific, and academic discourse. The appraisal framework was developed by Martin and White 2005 within SFLIG as a means of mapping out the resources we can use to provide value to social experience. According to Martin and White, the appraisal framework is concerned with investigating the degree of a speakers and writers' engagement with the prior speakers and writers' beliefs and values. Moreover, how the speaker or writer position themselves with other values and beliefs, for example, standing with or without, neutral or undecided, what and how they are trying to convey to the readers or the listeners. In other words, the appraisal framework is directed towards providing a systematic account of how such positioning is achieved linguistically. So the appraisal framework is constituted of the three categories: engagement, attitude, and graduation. And for the purpose of this study, we are concerned with the engagement system only. The engagement system includes linguistic resources that the writer uses to show his or her position towards the values demonstrated in the text, taking into account their readers. The engagement system is divided into main categories: monogloss and heterogloss. And monoglossic does not overtly reference other voice or viewpoints, while heteroglossic includes all resources that allow for other voices or viewpoints in the discourse. If you look at the top of this slide, you can see that the subcategories, the main subcategories in the engagement system is the heterogloss and the monogloss. And within the heterogloss features, we can find many subcategories such as contract and expand. And within the contract, you can find the disclaim and proclaim. Inside the disclaim, you can find deny features such as not or didn't or never. You can find counter features like yet, although, or but. And you can find in the proclaim features, conquer features that like affirming features, for example, of course, and obviously. And you can find concede features like admittedly. Also, you can find pronounced features such as I contend, or the facts, or indeed. You can find endorsement features such as the report demonstrates, shows, or proves. If you look at the expand features, you can find also two subcategories: the entertain features and the attribute features. Within the entertain features, you can find features or propositions like perhaps, it's probable that, this may be, must, and so on. Within the attribute features, you can find acknowledgement features such as Holiday argues, for example, or believes, or said, or reports, or states. The distance features, for example, like claimed. So the methodology, if we look at the methodology of this study, let's look at the context and the data. So we have 10 newspaper articles were chosen from the Arab News Journal according to the keywords Saudi women and Saudi women empowerment. Our corpus of the articles is concerned with the most recent period from November 2020 to January 2023. Arabic News Journal is the first English language daily newspaper in Saudi Arabia, as it was founded in 1975, and it has become the Middle East's leading English daily. It is one of more than 30 brands by Saudi Research Publishing Company, SRPC, a subsidiary of Saudi Research and Media Group. Arabic News Journal has an electronic website. In 2018, Arabic News Journal has adopted a new motto presented on the official website, which is the voice of a changing region, to demonstrate its new goal and mission. Many articles were published about Saudi women and Saudi women's empowerment in Arabic News Journal. This is a table of the articles that I have used in this study. They are organized according to their publication dates. The total number of this corpus is 8,728 words. The data analysis tool, we've used the UAM corpus tool. It's used by researchers working with the appraisal framework. And it was developed by O'Donnell 2008. It has a user-friendly interface for annotating text based on a coding scheme defined by the user. It also incorporates various useful text analysis tools, including a statistic module, which allows the researcher to compute the frequency of annotated categories automatically. The data analysis procedure, the articles were cleaned to exclude any remarks by the journal. Then they were divided into 2 data sets, and they were uploaded to the UAM corpus tool. The analysis was conducted through a built-in manual appraisal analysis of the engagement scheme without any modification to the scheme. The engagement items were identified and assigned features in each data set. Data annotated and re-annotated manually. In order to analyze data, descriptive and contrastive statistics were prepared by using the UAM tool. A contrastive descriptive analysis was applied to each dataset separately, since one contained more words than the other. In each dataset, the overall percentage of engagement items identified was calculated based on the total word count. And then comparisons were made between men and women's articles. Regarding the results in the discussion, they were divided into 2 parts. The first part regarding the heteroglossic features applied in all articles in general. And the second part is a comparison between the use of heteroglossic propositions between male and female journalists. So for the first part, we're looking at the heteroglossic features applied in all articles in general. You can see in the table that heteroglossic features were more than monoglossic features. And if we look at the contractive and expensive resources, you can see that the expensive resources were more than the contractive resources. Looking at the proclaim and disclaim resources or features, you can find that proclaim features are more than disclaim features. Looking at the contractive resources specifically, you can see that the counter features were more than the deny features, and for the proclaim features, the endorsement was the most used features between or among the rest of the features. Looking at the expand resources, you can see that 100% acknowledgement features were used. It's clear from the data that the journalists preferred using heteroglossic features more than the monoglossic ones. In other words, the author's voice was heteroglossic, which shows that they are allowing and accepting negotiation with other voices who might have a different opinion. Moving to look at heteroglossic features in the articles, it's obvious that expansive features are more than contractive features. And this indicates that the authors are opening up the space for more alternative voices, which is clear in the article. You can look at some examples from the articles that are using the expansive features. Here we have acknowledgement features, like, for example, Nashar said, and in the second example, Primaya told. Within the subcategory of engagement contraction, there are proclaiming and disclaiming dialogic features. And the writer, as we have said, used more proclaim resources than the disclaim ones. And for proclaiming was mostly expressed by endorsement features, followed by justify resources and pronounce resources, and with no use of concurrent resources at all. And that indicates that the writer are completely aligned with the external voices included in their articles. This is an example of endorsement feature. Here she pointed out. Disclaiming features were expressed mostly by countering, and that shows that the journalists negotiated some other opinions in their articles. This is an example of using countering features like only, and we have here not, it's a deny feature. And we have but also as a counter feature. Within the expansive feature, we have entertain and attribute resources. And the formulation of attribution were the most common type in the whole data, with 100% fully for acknowledgement features, with no using of distancing resources at all. That shows that the associated external ideas and voices in these articles were engaged interactively by the authors. This is an example of acknowledgement feature like thanks, Jeopardy thanks. The entertainment features were about only 10%. Looking at comparison between men and women journalist stances and women-themed article, you can see that men used heteroglossic features more than women, and in contrast, women used monoglossic features more than the men writers. Also, if you look at the contract and expand resources, you can see that men journalists used expand features more than women used expand features more than men, and you can see that men used contract features more than women. Also, men journalists or male journalists used proclaiming resources more than women journalists. If we look at in detail for disclaim and proclaim, you can find that male journalists use countering resources and endorsement resources more than female writers. And if you look at the endorsement and the proclaiming, that was used more by male than female journalists. If we look at the expand features, you can see that the acknowledgement features were used more by female writers than the male writers. Again, it's clear from the data that male journalists preferred using heteroglossic features more than female journalists, and female journalists used more monoglossic propositions than males. In other words, the male authors are allowing and accepting negotiation with their audience readers who might have different opinions more than women journalists. In contrast, women journalists closed up some discussion and presented their positions clearly. It seems that Saudi women journalists believe in empowerment, and they are closing negotiation about empowerment. Also, regarding male and female writers, they both prefer using expansive features. For male authors, they used, as we have said, endorsement and countering resources more. And for female writers, they used acknowledgement resources. And authors interact with other external points of view mentioned in the articles. Comparing men and women journalist voices, female journalists prefer to acknowledge other voices, and male journalists prefer to endorse and counter other external voices included in their articles. To conclude, the Arab News Journal supports the external voices that encourage and praise the achievement of Saudi women. The female and male authors are different in using the linguistic formulations, but they accomplish the same goal, which is embracing the women empowerment in Saudi Arabia. For limitations and implications, this study cannot be generalized because of the number of words. It's considered a small number of corpus. And it is one researcher work, so it needs another, let's say, another opinion or another point of view to look at the data. For the implications for this study, we can say that more journal types should be investigating regarding Saudi women empowerment and Saudi issues and topics. Also, journalists, according to their nationality, could be compared. So, for example, Saudi journalists and non-Saudi journalists regarding their use of engagement formulations. Comparisons also between various journals could be applied, and not only the Arab News Journal, but we can also use another journals or English journals in Saudi Arabia. Also, a larger number of words should be included to look at this topic in more details. Thank you for your listening, and these are my references. I'm happy to listen to your questions, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mana, for your presentation. So now the floor is open. So if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts regarding the presentation, feel free to speak through your microphone or type here in the chat box. So anytime. So hi, Sushi. How are you?
Hi, Eric. Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see
Thanks
you.
for that great presentation. I'd like to ask a question, which is, that's a really interesting study, but I'd love to see some examples of, you've reported these great numbers of the resources that are used in engagement, but I was wondering if you could show us a couple of the different examples. You may not have them there, and maybe you've written it up as a paper, but it would be great to see some examples with the numbers.
Yeah, I think they are written in the paper. So I'm not sure that I can show you them now.
Okay, but maybe you can put a link to the paper in the chat, and then we can look at them. paper to see the examples.
Okay. Okay. I will. Thank you for your question.
Sorry, not a very good question.
It's all right. Any question is a good question.
Let's see. So feel free to type your thoughts, your comments, your maybe questions. As we are waiting, Mana, I've got a question for you, not a very difficult one. As you are comparing the use of engagement resources between male and female journalists, so what is the, maybe I missed that, what is the underlying questions that you want to answer? Is it, has it got to do with the voices the journalists try to portray in terms of a different gender, or any other thing that you have, coming across your mind?
I was trying to look at how they deal with the topic as men and women, how they are talking about empowerment, how they are expressing their point of view. So that's why I tried to make a comparison between them. And both of them, if you have noticed that, they have different ways, but they accomplish the same goal. Both of them appraise the empowerment, what's going on in the society, but they have their different ways. So, for example, women use acknowledgement more, and men use endorsement features more.
Right. And as you are like annotating the corpus of articles using UAM corpus, so you may have found that in the engagement framework or the scheme, you have justification, as you have annotated some of them as justification. And if you go back to like Martin and White 2005, the framework doesn't have the justification resource included in the system. So how do you explain your choice of the version of the engagement framework?
I think that I have I have added the justify feature. I'm not sure that if I cleared that in the presentation, but as it is mentioned, I think in a paper of Martin and White at 2013, or I'm not sure of the date, but I thought that using the new version was better. So I adopted looking for justification or justify features. But I'm not sure that I have mentioned that in the presentation. Sorry for that.
No, that's all right. Yeah, I was just thinking because the resources for justification may vary, or maybe there are like a plethora of choices that have to do with justification, and other systems such as logical semantic relations, or even like other frameworks like RST have already done the work. So I keep wondering, because one of my studies have to do with, annotating engagement resources as well. So I'm just thinking whether or not I have to, take that option into consideration as well. So yeah, I will look into that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have to look at it. Looking at the features was one of the best experience that I've been with. This was when we were talking with Sally at the beginning, this is my first time to work with SFL and looking at the appraisal system. And so it was very engaging and very interesting how to look at the features and formulations that they are using in Martin and White appraisal theory. So it was interesting. So you go ahead and look at the justification features.
That's right. Okay, thank you again, Mana, and thank you, Sushi, for your question. So I think we have an early break today because we only have 2 presentations for this session. So we will
I want to ask one more question. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Mana, can I ask you one more question?
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Mana, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
What I want to ask you, because I like Sally have a long history of using SFL and appraisal, and I'm in Australia. So I want to ask you something, because it's actually quite hard, and good on you for applying appraisal, in particular engagement, when you've never used it before. That is a really amazing thing to have done. So what I want to ask you is, on a kind of bigger picture sort of level, what did it show you and tell you? Because you've told us these lovely sort of counts, this kind of engagement resource was used here or there by this group or that group, and this wasn't. But if you stand back from that, and if you kind of try and then now take a look, what did using engagement show me about this data set that I wouldn't have otherwise seen had I not used it? And I don't mean just the counts. What would you say? What did it show you in a big picture kind of way?
Yeah. Let me try to understand your question, and I will try to answer it. If I get the answer, let me know. Why am I interested in engagement and appraisal? I am a PhD student, so my supervisor introduced SFL for us, and he's one of the people that has a long history working with SFL and appraisal system and all of these. So it was the first time for me that I have known about appraisal system, specifically SFL in details. So I found that appraisal system, specifically engagement, because I worked on engagement, really showed the stance or the voice, how the voice of the writers or the voice of the speaker. So this is added to my knowledge, or added to my how we are using the language. So this is how I'm looking now at the appraisal that helps us as learners, English learners or second language learners, how we can show our points of view, how we can understand others' points of view. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for you.
Okay, again, thank you, Shishi, for the question, and Mana for your wonderful presentation and your answers. So again, we're going to have an early break. So when we're back at 1:15 Hobart time, we're going to have the second appraisal session with 4 presenters. So make sure you check your time zone. Again, it's we start again at 1:15 Hobart time. So now, why don't we have lunch right now, and we'll see you back in the afternoon.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. No way. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.